This podcast is intended for adult audiences over the age of 18. It contains adult language and situations. The views, thoughts, and opinions expressed in this podcast belong solely to us, and not of any employer, organization, committee, or other group or individuals. This podcast is not intended to be taken as professional advice.
Welcome to the TheSwingNation podcast, a podcast by swingers for swingers, where we look to educate others and push back on the negative stigmas and misconceptions associated with our lifestyle. Come with us and share our pineapple journey as we travel the globe, interview the experts, learn and grow together. Join the nation. So Lacy, people are asking, how do they get to go to a party or an event with us?
They check out swingersociety.net, you create a profile, you sign up for an event, and you come hang out with us. It's super easy.
That's right. If you want to party with us and the other faces and names that you know from social media and TikTok, head on over to swingersociety.net.
Can't wait to see you there.
Hey there, Pineapple people, and welcome to the TheSwingNation podcast. We are your hosts, Northern Guy
and Southern Girl.
And today we have a very special episode for you.
Yes.
A little different for the TheSwingNation podcast. But we are sitting down with Paul Keable, who is the Chief Strategy Officer at Ashley Madison.
We are. And
unless you've been under a rock for the last couple of years, you've probably heard of
decade,
of
really.
Ashley Madison. Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's made a few headlines. Paul, you guys are pretty popular here lately.
Well, thank you so much first for having me on today. I really appreciate it. Yeah, we've certainly been in the news on occasion for a variety of activities.
Yes.
So the way we like to start our podcast is kind of to get to know our guests. So if you don't mind just introducing yourself to our guests and maybe explaining a little bit how you've got tied up with Ashley Madison and how you've kind of landed in this position you're in now.
Absolutely. So thank you so much. So I am a 50-plus-year-old dad of two teenage boys who has been working with Ashley Madison for 10 years. I'm a communications PR professional. And a little over 10 years ago, a friend of mine came to me to say that she had a friend, a company that was looking for someone to take over the communications department, but it was a company that was a little bit spicy. It was spicy. I mean, I've done a lot of crazy clients over my time. I've done a lot of consulting, and I'm like, what? Why would you call something spicy? And then she says, oh, by the way, it's Ashley Madison. And at that time, I was aware, but I'm not sure to what extent, because it's quite some time ago. And I remember coming into the when we had an office back then to meet with the then CEO, and I was just fascinated. In part because, so for those of you who don't know a little bit about Ashley Madison, we're actually a Canadian company, born and raised, and it's a unique thing in this country where we have this big global brand operated out of Canada. Oftentimes, we're working for satellite offices that with an American headquarters or a European headquarters, or there's Canadian companies that just operate in Canada. But to have this brand that at the time was operating in more than 50 countries around the world and was obviously way out there on the edge, I went, wow, this is going to be really interesting, exciting, and enticing. And I went to my then wife, and she kind of gave me a bit of a cross-eyed look. And she's like, do you want to tell me something? And I went, no, it's just a job. And so I joined, and it's been quite the roller coaster over the past 10 plus years. But I have to tell you, it's been one of the most rewarding jobs I've ever had, not just in terms of the work that I get to do, but more importantly, the people that I get to encounter, both through, my sort of official job function of doing interviews like this with people like yourselves, but also some of the academics I've worked with to study the nature of monogamy and non-monogamy. And then most importantly, our actual members, and coming to really understand who they are and the variety of reasons they come to use a platform like Ashley, given the plethora of alternatives out there.
Yeah, it is interesting. So Ashley Madison got its start what, early 2000s?
Yeah, we launched 2002. So a little over 20 years ago. And since then, we've had more than 90 million members join the site.
Yeah, and in the early 2000s, I mean, that was kind of the wild, wild west of
internet
dating, internet dating, right? I mean, that was kind of when everything was first getting started, right?
Well, yeah, and it's actually, it goes to the origin stories of our business. Our founder, had what is the proverbial light bulb moment, because traditional vanilla online dating was certainly taking off between the eHarmonies and the Match.coms of the world. But he read a report that said that up to 30% of the profiles were in fact married people pretending to be single. Mm-hmm. And that light bulb flicked on and said, why don't we build a place where people could be, ironically, more honest about who they are and what they're looking for with others who are looking for the very same thing? And thus was born Ashley Madison.
Yeah. Okay. So 2001, you guys launched, and you launched with this. I think what's interesting, what you just said there is, we're on a lot of swinger dating sites. And I think it's pretty universal, whether you get on Tinder, whether you get on a swinger dating site, whether you get on, some of the ones you listed, there are a lot of married people pretending to be something they're not on these websites. I mean, we encounter them probably every single month. So the idea of being like, okay, let's stop pretending that we're on the up and up and just be honest about what we're looking for. We're married people that are looking for something else. It's at least an authentic idea, I think.
Well, isn't that kind of what, like, how swingers websites were probably born? Is because we've used vanilla dating sites as swingers. Like, we've used Tinder. I think they've gotten a lot better now, but back when we've used Tinder, we've used several different things, and just like in the comments wrote, we're not actually just a single guy or not actually just a single girl. We are a married couple. Mm-hmm. So isn't that kind of the same concept for how swinger websites were born?
Yeah, I don't know exactly.
I would assume
when they got their start.
Yeah.
And what
I think there's some legitimacy to that point, but the difference was, I think a lot of the people who are in the lifestyle tend to be a little bit more upfront about who they are.
For sure.
And they're not, they're very unlikely to be pretending. They might have some covert function of it in terms of their public profile, whether it's on Tinder or Bumble or Hinge, X number of years ago, before all the different descriptions were sort of allowed on these various platforms. But for us, what we were really trying to do, and what we're continuing to try to do, is take affairs out of places where they're highly increased risk of getting caught in just what we feel is kind of inappropriate. Majority of affairs, from our perspective, are not happening through dating sites or other dating sites. More importantly, they're happening at the office, because that's where you spend so much of your life and your time. And in a world today where both parties are being punished for, and again, we're talking very clearly here, consensual affairs, companies just don't want that in the business place. It's a risk, it's a cost, and it can lead to a lot of negative outcomes. And so our suggestion is, hey, listen, if you're going to have an affair, have it with another person who's also married, who's not in your work life, not in your social life. And it creates this concept of, not to be wildly negative, but mutually assured destruction. Because if I'm cheating and she's cheating, then neither one of us are likely to act in a fashion to expose the affair. Whereas if you're at the office and you're sleeping with somebody who maybe is junior to you, then there's leverage. And then there's opportunities for that to be utilized in a negative fashion and potentially expose that affair. The CEO of Intel, this is going back a few years, not that long ago, he lost his position. He was fired because he had a consensual affair years prior to getting the role, but the board of directors found out it was with an employee. It long had since ended, and again, consensually, there was no reports of harassment or anything of that, but the fact that it had happened in the workplace and it was against the work rules, he lost the job. And so this was our whole point. Office affairs are not safe for work, so come to Ashley Madison. But what's fascinating, I know we're going to probably get into this, is the evolution over the past 20 plus years of who's actually using Ashley Madison versus what people think is actually happening.
Yeah. No, that is true. And the swingers are the same way, so there's several swingers that have to hide who they are and not be honest about it at places like where I was in the military before I retired, for 21 years. And, for the last 8 years I was in the military, I was pretty active in the swinger community, and I was petrified that my work would find out that I was a swinger, even though it completely consensual. My wife knows about it. We're doing it together. Had the wrong person found out, they could have used it to end my career. So definitely, those types of concerns, I think, are pretty universal for for married people that are trying to engage with others, whether it's consensually or whether it's
disclosed or not disclosed, how we like to frame it.
Yeah. A good way of putting it.
I like that term, disclose non-monogamy.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's better than I've never really liked consensual, to be honest with you.
Right, because obviously the sexual act is consensual.
Yeah.
Now, whether both of the married partners are agreeing to the sexual act or not is up for debate, I guess. Okay, so let's fast forward. So 2001, you guys start this website with this different with this really kind of bold statement, right? So, and then 2015 happens, and for those that don't know, that's around the time you guys got hacked and everything kind of went to hell, right?
Not a high point in my career.
you were at Ashley. You said you've been there for 10 years, so
I was there.
You were pretty new, and you were working for the company at that time, right?
Yeah, I was there for a little over a year and a half, and it was obviously the lowest point in the company's history. And to be really clear here, the reason it was a low point was not just because of what happened, it's because we let our members down. Because all the marketing aside, the taglines aside, ultimately what we offer our members is discretion to explore a variety of activities with others who are seeking the same thing. And in that moment, we unambiguously let them down. And as hard as that was, one of the things that was fascinating to me sitting on the inside, and it wasn't well reported at the time, was right before all that happened, we were signing about 30,000 people a day, new members joining every day. But during the worst of those times, we saw our membership increase more than 100,000 a day, and our revenue was up double-digit percentage points. So clearly, there was a growing interest. There was millions of people around the world who had not heard about our service, who were saying, "Holy moly, this answers a problem I have, and you are now the solution. Please stay in business." And we didn't let that go to our heads thinking, "Oh, it's fine, we don't have to do anything." We knew we had to rebuild the trust. We knew we had to go about things in a new and better way to sort of come back from that moment. And I think the first 3 to 4 years, it was really just all about authenticating our message to our members to tell them, why they can trust us, why we're the right platform for discreet dating of a variety of activities. And, we're at a point now, like I said, we've had more than twice as many members have joined since 2015 than we had at 2015, because we had a little over 30 million at that time. So that's an astonishing point to tell the world that, clearly there is a community of people that find what we offer of value. And, it's an exciting future for the business.
Yeah. And so, last year, 2024, this Netflix documentary comes out. And we've watched it, we've seen it, and it makes some pretty bold accusations, I guess would be the way to say it. Saying that when this hack happened, that you guys had, or not you guys, Ashley Madison had said it had all these security things in place, and it had all these badges and stuff on its website, and in fact, maybe some of those were overindulged and not necessarily the full truth. That there was more focus on growth than maybe there was necessarily on security. Is that true? Like, what is your kind of vision of, or your view on all that stuff?
So was
this just some hackers that were just
no? I think there's a multitude.
It wouldn't have mattered what was in place.
No, I think there's a multitude of things there. One, I think working for Ashley Madison, in particular, pre-2015, where the business was just growing leaps and bounds, we were a significant cultural touch point. I think, some people don't realize this. There's a whole episode of The Simpsons based on us, where Marge cheats on Homer on sassymadison.com. So certain individuals who might have appeared in that show you're referencing, they were there, but I think delusions of grandeur might have set it in terms of, their role versus, how they portrayed themselves and what they really knew what was happening, because none of those individuals were part of the team that was responsible for security. So did we have security? Absolutely. We have a team that was responsible for that. Absolutely. And if we go back to that, it was a very different time. I mean, we're talking 10 years ago at this point in terms of the internet security. Unambiguously, the company made mistakes. And for that, we paid a penance, and one that we've learned our lessons and we'll never go back to some of the errors that were there. But the idea that we weren't invested in security or that we weren't that wasn't part of the company's DNA was wrong. It was different, as a lot of companies were at the time. And so we, clearly, we can't pretend that what happened didn't happen. So it did. And we've grown from that. But the biggest shift that I tell people, because obviously I can't go into all the technological differences, because that's giving you a bit of a blueprint. But whereas back then we would have an individual is responsible for security, what we have now is a much more expanded and robust security team. But we also have a culture of security and privacy embedded into the company, where it's each and every one person's responsibility to think through that. So when we're doing any new product launch, any new feature that we're building, any aspect of the platform that's being changed, even the marketing of the platform and the brand, we think about how does security and privacy, relate to every single initiative, because it's all of our responsibilities. And I think that shift is the biggest cultural aspect that has allowed our members to see the difference between, Ashley 1.0 to Ashley 2.0, where we are today.
Yeah. Did anybody ever figure out who did it?
No.
Is that? Yeah, I was going to say, last I knew, nobody knows who it was, right?
No.
I can remember I worked in like an office setting and I was young. So I had just graduated high school about this time. So it was right out of high school and college. And I can remember the list.
Well, 2015.
No, when the,
Yeah, it's 2015.
Oh, was it 2015? I thought they started in 22. Okay, wait a second. I was a little older, but I was still at this job. And I can remember when the list came out and everybody was like checking it.
Everybody checked the list.
Yeah,
literally everybody in America. Once this hack happened and these lists of names came out, I think almost everybody in America.
Did you know anybody? I knew people that were on it.
My name might have been on it. I'm not
was
sure.
it?
No, I probably used a fake name.
No, there was people that I worked with that names were on it. And I guess I was pretty pure back then. I was very vanilla and I was shocked to see that people were engaging in this type. I don't know if they ever did anything, but I was just shocked that they even were entertaining the idea.
Yeah, it's quite the, it's interesting. Like, literally our age, Lacy are both 40. I think everybody knows about Ashley Madison and that hack. But I hadn't heard about it before that. I remember finding out about Ashley Madison when it was hacked and when the list and everything came out. That was my experience with it. Okay. And then some other accusations that I think we maybe need to talk about that came out of that Netflix documentary is there were some accusations that there wasn't as many females on that site as was portrayed, and that some of them might have been, I didn't really, is either bots or paid chatters that were interacting with people.
Two different issues there. Let's deal with the bots first. Yeah, we had bots. That was a dumb mistake. But what isn't told in the Netflix documentary is our company, so our parent company is Ruby Life. We own and operate a couple different other dating brands as well. We bought Ashley Madison from the original founder, and that program was part of the purchase. And we were already well underway to shutting it down country by country because of the nature of the code. And I'm not going to get into the technology of it all, but it wasn't like just an easy on and off switch for the whole world. It had been shut off in the US, had been shut off in Canada, and shut off in Australia before 2015. And our business was continuing to grow in those markets. So that was not the reason why our business was growing. Did we have it? Yes. Was it a good idea? No. It was unambiguously a mistake, but not one that will ever be repeated. And as it relates to women on the site, I think that accusation is one that's thrown out a lot of different sites, but ours in particular, and it's born out of an idea of misogyny. Because there's this idea that, women don't have agency over their sexual life, that they don't want to manifest an active sex life, once they hit a certain age or space in life. And to counter that argument, we actually brought in the auditing firm, Ernst & Young. And this was a number of years ago, but they audited our whole membership for the 2017 year. And they put out a public report that anybody could go to our website and find and download and look at it. And it unequivocally stated, in that year alone, we saw active females to active paid males, 1.13 active females for every one active paid male. So the balance was pretty good. And those numbers will fluctuate from country to country, region. Like I know in Latin America, we often see 2 to 1 women to men in that same scenario, sometimes even 3 to 1. So it depends where you're at. And as with dating, your chances of success are predicated on a lot of different factors and variables. Because when you're coming to a place like Ashley Madison, you're not looking for a life partner. You're not looking to fulfill a whole bunch of different roles that you might find in a traditional dating site. You're looking for something pretty specific, and so people will take their time to find somebody and look for that right opportunity. And some people come on having this expectation that, I'm going to meet a horny housewife and sleep with her tonight. Well, that's just unrealistic in any scenario.
Yeah.
So, because even if there is a horny housewife on the site and she is looking to have sex with somebody, she's still going to take the time to vet the individual, make sure he or they meet her expectations, needs, and all the other parameters that she's put in there. So, it's not that it's a huge laborious activity, but you have to have realistic expectations. And I'm sure you've experienced that in the lifestyle as well, because I've heard from other people in that space where they get so disappointed. They go to a sex club and then they come back that night and it's like nothing happened. I'm like, well, what did you think was going to happen? You're brand new. You don't know anybody. It's not like people just drop their pants in the back corner and then it's good times. People, they have different, inhibitions and desires, but there's still an aspect of safety, trust, and connection that needs to be formed. It's different, but just people come into these spaces with wild expectations. And so this is part of the reason I do these conversations to help, level set people.
No, I think we 100% can relate to that. One, I'm surprised your 1-to-1 ratio. We're on quite a few swinger websites. We actually manage our own swinger community and stuff like that, and our spaces are even dominated by more males. Maybe it's 2-to-1, maybe it's 3-to-1, but it's definitely dominated by males in those spaces. And a lot of the males, they kind of have a bad reputation in those spaces because they do what you just said. They jump on these sites, they mass message everybody and say, hey, you want to fuck? Like, oh, hey, nice boobs. Look at my dick. Would you like to have sex tonight? Yeah. And they email as many people as they possibly can, and hoping that they get one response so that they can have a quick hookup that night. And what they find is in our community, all these women are married. They have husbands that they love and they care about, and they can have good sex just about whenever they want. And what they're looking for is that something extra, that person that fills a certain fantasy, that person that, checks whatever box that they may have that they're looking for. And it's not something you can just jump in and quickly, fill. You're not all these women aren't gonna be like, oh my God, there's a guy with a dick. Oh my, I've never seen that before. Please come fuck me. So yeah, I think, that get laid quickly. If you're looking at married women for that, that's not necessarily the case. That I think you're going to find in this space.
Yeah, I don't think it's in the case in almost any space, quite frankly. I think no matter, again, even if you're the most libidinous woman on the planet, you're still going to have certain frameworks and parameters from a trust and safety perspective to start, but also just, hey, am I in the mood tonight versus tomorrow? Do I have to pick up the kids from, soccer practice? Like, we all have busy lives. And people just take their time with it. But that said, if you do approach the platform you properly in the community properly and understand and communicate, you can meet some amazing people. And just your point about how men can come on some platforms and do the pray and spray methodology, we've actually purpose-built our platform to try to dissuade men from being able to do that. So the difference on our site is most dating sites are subscription-based platforms where a guy can go on and message as many women as he wants immediately. But he's going to get charged month over month over month. Whereas our site, you buy a package of credits. And to initiate a conversation with a woman will cost you a certain amount of credits, depending on which features you employ. But if she responds, your conversation with her can be free, as long as you want to continue talking to her. So what's great about that from our perspective is it limits or forces men to be a little bit more choosy in who they send messages to, number one. Two, for the men's benefit, is that if he does meet somebody and they do extend the conversation into the real life and they go off and have a relationship affair, whatever it is, whether it's a weekend, a week, a month, or a year, that man that can come back and his credits are still there. And he doesn't have to buy a whole new package until he's exhausted those credits. So we find it gives a better experience for the females on the site and allows men to explore without constantly paying the monthly subscription if they're not finding traction.
So we made a profile and we had a male profile. And I put like our picture up, and I put, that we were the SwingNation podcast, but we were looking for females. And I messaged a few. I checked it like right before we came on because I just played with it a little bit. But yeah, it was pretty cool to be like on the male side of that and be messaging people and asking to see their pictures and stuff like that.
Have you connected with anybody?
No. But I will say, just from like a user standpoint, I thought it was pretty cool. There was much more single people on there than I would have ever thought. I thought for sure it would just be married people, but there was, I would say, half were single, and they just said that in their description. I will say there's not a lot, unless they're single, there's not a lot of pictures. So you relied heavily on like their description, like whatever they put. Mm-hmm. So you were really hoping to grab somebody's attention, and people were just like pretty like blatant, like, I'm in this marriage and I'm not having good sex. I'm not going to leave my husband. I have children. I'm happy with my life. I just need to get fucked, basically. And so I found it kind of refreshing to see that, like, just honesty. And then again, it was nice to see single people there as well.
Well, it's interesting. Over the past, I think, 6 or 7 years, we've been tracking to a degree the nature of our membership in terms of how would they identify. And we have about 20% of the membership would indicate they are what we would say is disclosed non-monogamous, meaning their partners are aware, if not participating in their activities. And ultimately, that's because of the discretion we offer. Unlike, the Tinders of the world and some of the other dating platforms, mm-hmm. we cater typically to a slightly older audience, north of 35, let's say, for sake of argument.
Yeah.
And people have an established life at this point. They have careers, sometimes they have kids, family. They don't want the rest of the world knowing that they're maybe just dipping their toes into space, exploring, looking into, or full-time participating. And the discretion that we offer, plus the community of people that are seeking the things that they are, is why we have so many people who don't necessarily fit under the banner of, married dating, as it were.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Like I said before, we've used Tinder, and I've seen people that I've known personally, and I was like, and they like kind of made a couple's profile. Basically, they wanted to find like a single female, and I was always kind of shocked that they put it out there so publicly when they were pretty private individuals. So I think if you are going to do something like that in your town and you're not using a swinger website, I could see where Ashley Madison would come across a little bit more discreet, in my opinion.
And just to your point, because you mentioned about photos, often you won't find people putting their face on their public profile, mm-hmm. Which is very, the opposite of most traditional dating sites. But again, we built the system so that there's a public image bank that each profile has, but there's a private image bank that each profile has. Mm-hmm. And if you start a conversation with somebody and you vet them and there's some trust established, I can send my key to you, and then you can look at my pictures, get a better sense of what I look like. But I can then retract that key at any point in time so that you only have limited access and you can't screen cap the images of and that type of thing. That way, you have a little bit more control as an Ashley Madison member about who you're revealing your true self to. Because again, discretion matters in these spaces.
And correct me if I'm wrong, I'm trying to remember when I uploaded our picture, but there's like built-in filters that you could cover your face or blur out stuff, right? Yep. Which for me, I'm not very techie and I don't know how to do that kind of stuff. Dan would be the one that would know how to do it. I found it refreshing because I was like, oh, well, that's easy. I could just cover this spot, or like, I think there was one where you could like put a mask on, which I thought was kind of cool. So I found that nice because I'm not very good at that kind of stuff.
No, you're right. That's exactly what we've done. We've given a lot of tools to manage the types of photos you want to put up. So if you want to put your face on the public profile, we have a lace mask that matches sort of the lace mask that you'll find on our homepage that are the model's wearing in the shush image, which is our sort of iconic image. But you can put that and manipulate it, turn it, twist it, increase size, decrease size to fit your image so that there is an element of discretion, or blur the image so you can give a sense of maybe it's your figure, maybe it's your face, and that gives somebody looking at your profile an idea to match against what your profile has. And I think that also it's interesting because so much of what online dating is boils down to a visual aesthetic, and people rarely actually bother to read the profiles. And our site, you kind of have to read the profile. So people, I find the more successful members are the ones who do take the time to both write a detailed profile, and it doesn't need to be, War and Peace length story. It just needs to be detailed enough to give you a sense of what who I am and what I'm looking for. And those ones are also more likely to read other people's profiles. So when they're reaching out, is not the hey, because hey is not a great way to introduce yourself on a dating platform.
No, it's not.
Okay, but before we take a break, I just want to give you one more. So, was there anything from the Netflix documentary, anything that happened in the Ashley Madison history that you want to set straight? I think before we go on break and then we come back and we start talking about the Ashley Madison of now and maybe where it's going.
Yeah, no, I think, like I said, the biggest accusations we have are the bots and, the lack of females. And I think I've addressed those. And, ultimately, you're going to have different ideas around the nature of our business based on your morals, your ethics, and what you're looking for. And my job is not to go out and convince you that we're the world's greatest site. My job is to help you understand what's actually happening there so you can make an informed decision about whether or not Ashley Madison is the right for you. And like I said, very charismatic people were in that documentary. I would suggest that some might have aggrandized their roles, their value to the organization, and some of the stories they may have been telling.
Got it. All right, now let's take a little break and hear from the partners and sponsors of the SwingNation podcast. And then when we get back, I want to hear about what happened since the documentary, since the hack, what's been happening for the last 10 years, and where is this site going? We're going to take a break, and we'll be right back, guys. Lacy, the question we get asked on social media and TikTok more than any other question is, how do I find lifestyle people, lifestyle events, lifestyle parties, lifestyle cruises, lifestyle people? I think I already said that.
Yeah.
In my area.
Basically anything lifestyle,
right.
you need.
How do I find it?
You need to get on a swinger website, and SDC is one of our favorites. It's really big here in the Southeast U.S. for sure.
Yeah. And it has all the clubs listed. It has all the parties listed. Yeah. You can find information on cruises. You can find our podcasts on SDC.
Yeah, you can.
And if you want to try it completely risk-free, we have a free trial link for you.
We do, yeah.
So how do people go and find that free trial link?
If you go to TheSwingNation.info and scroll to the bottom, you're going to find some of our favorite products and brands, and you're just going to click that link and go straight there.
All right. If you guys want to find lifestyle people in your area, go sign up for SDC, completely risk-free, and see if it works for you.
I agree.
All right, guys.
Bye.
Go check it out. Lacy, we talk a lot on this podcast about lifestyle insurance and how it's very common for almost every male in the lifestyle to use some form of ED medication to make sure when that time comes that he cooperates.
Yeah.
So we highly recommend, if you need ED medication, that you go to Shameless Care for that. And there's a couple different reasons why. One, they're one of the cheapest on the market.
Yeah.
Right. So some of these other companies, they mark that prescription way up. Shameless Care is one of the cheapest. And the second thing I like that they do is they don't lock you into a subscription.
Yeah, it's really cool because when it's like almost time, like they think you might be needing some, they actually email you and say, hey,
need a refill?
Do you need a refill? If you don't respond, you just don't get any.
Right.
But if you want some, you could just respond back to them.
Right. There's other brands where you pay this monthly subscription and they send you ED medication. The next thing you know, you got 15 bottles of ED medication sitting around the house. And your card is still getting charged monthly. And then to try to cancel it, it's a big pain in the butt. With Shameless Care, you don't have to worry about any of that, right? So there's no subscription. You just go to the website, you order it when you need it. If you don't need it, you don't order it again until you do need some more. So I love that. Shameless Care, lifestyle friendly, right? They got doctors in all 50 states that they know about performance anxiety. They know you're in the lifestyle. So go to shamelesskare.com/TSN, get your ED medication subscription through a company that really understands the lifestyle.
Yeah, they do. My favorite type of swinger is a safe swinger. One that has done all of the work before they even get to the club, before they get to the party, and they know that they are STI negative. They've got it all figured out before they walk in. So that way, when it's time to play, they don't even have to like skip a beat. They're just like, here are our results. You can look at them on my phone or you can look them up for yourself. We were tested. Everything came back negative. We're good to go. That's my favorite type of swinger. What about you, Dan?
I'm kind of one of those guys. If you want to fuck like a porn star, you probably should get tested like a porn star. And if we've learned anything over the last 4 years of doing this podcast, is not all tests are the same. The tests you're getting at your doctor might not be all the tests that you need if you're going to be actively participating in this lifestyle.
Yeah, if you go to your doctor and say, I need a full panel STD, STI test, that's whatever they think a full panel is. There's not like a rule book that says you should check for these 10 things or 12 things. Heck, we've been to some doctors and they have no idea what even should be tested for and what shouldn't. So your best bet is to use I Know My Status, because they know we're swingers. They know what we're up to. They've been testing porn stars for years. So they know how to get you tested and ready to go and have lots of fun.
Yeah, they really are the gold standard in STI testing for the adult industry. And swingers, we're fucking a lot like porn stars.
Yeah.
So those are probably the same tests that you need to be getting. So head on over to I Know My Status, get signed up. If you're in the Florida or Vegas or Orlando area, there's an office. You can go in and get tested and you get your results back as soon as the same day. Mm-hmm. If not, they have draw labs located across the country. Yeah. Where you can go and you can get tested. And same, they'll mail your result or your labs into the lab and you'll get your results back. I think, as soon as a day or two, depending on how long.
It's pretty quick.
The mail takes.
It's worth notating if you go to your family doctor and they're testing for basically everything, but maybe they're missing like a mouth swab or an MGen test, some of the newer things that, maybe our family doctors are not
testing for.
Yeah, testing for. You can go to I Know My Status and just purchase those tests. You don't have to go and spend, a lot of money to pay for the whole thing. You don't have to do that. You can just go and be tested for the things that you need.
Right. Yeah. And you could even, if you want to, you could call them and say, hey, these are the tests I get from my local doctor. What am I missing?
Yeah.
And I'm sure they would have a conversation with you about what they think you should be getting tested for. And then you can order just those tests and go get those done. So,
we had a friend not long ago that somebody that they were engaging with wanted her to be tested for MGen. They just go to their local doctor. They know they're swingers. It's not a big deal. And so they went to a draw facility in their town and just were tested for that one test. And of course it came back negative, no issues, and they were good to play.
Right. So go check out iknowmystatus.com. Go get tested like a porn star today so that we can play safe at our next event.
Yeah.
All right, guys. All right, guys, welcome back. Welcome back. Thank you for listening to our sponsors. We love our sponsors.
We do.
So we're back here with Paul talking all things Ashley Madison. So kind of on the front side of the break, we kind of talked about all the news, right? All the things you probably heard about Ashley Madison between the Netflix documentary and the hack and all the things that I think everybody knows.
Yeah.
Now, I think the rest of the story is kind of where a lot of people don't know.
Yeah.
So you alluded to it a little bit on the front side of the break, but Ashley Madison is now bigger now, post-hack, post-Netflix, than it's ever been. That's accurate, Paul?
Absolutely. So at the 2015 mark, we had a little over 30 million members from when we launched in 2002, and now we have more than 90 million members worldwide. And that shows you that the growth wasn't stymied by what happened in 2015. I think it could have been. I mean, every talking head and pundit at the time said this is the death knell for our business. But like I mentioned, what they didn't know or didn't want to believe is that millions of people around the world coveted what we offer, discretion to a community of like-minded people. And the interest in it, so long as we could repair the trust and show them that we were taking, some of the issues that were exposed in 2015 seriously, I believe fundamentally that the business had a return to growth opportunity. And the fact that I'm standing here talking to you 10 years later says we were right. And it's super exciting because, I sort of phrased it as this is Ashley 2.0, and we're very much now in the works of planning and executing Ashley Madison 3.0, which makes me super excited because I think we have a road ahead that is long and very diverse.
Yeah, it is. It is interesting to me. Once I watched that Netflix show, I'm like, well, they must be gone. They must be done.
Yeah.
And I think I actually Googled the website, and it's like, nope, it's still here. And I think it said 90 million users or something like that. I'm like, not only is it still here, but it's tripled in size.
Yeah.
And so once the whole thing happened, you guys just fixed the problems and then started telling everybody, hey, look, we've addressed the issues, but we're still here and we're still offering this service, and now it's new and better and improved. Is that the message? Like, how do you recover from
I love how you make it sound so easy. No, in a sense, yeah, you're not wrong. I mean, what we had to do is we had to start from a position of security and privacy. So we hired a new chief privacy officer. We hired a whole new security team who built a completely different approach to how we manage data, because we really needed to show our members that what we were doing was something that they could trust, because they're sharing some of the most intimate messages, thoughts, and ideas, and sometimes images of their life on our platform, and to do so requires a high level of trust. And so it's been a lot of work, and it was a lot of slow building. Like the first 2 or 3 years post 2015 were tough. The signups had declined dramatically, as one would think. We had to prove to our internal partners that our business was right sized and appropriate, and we were dealing with all the issues that were exposed. And I think it was slowly and surely, one community at a time, we sort of rebuilt that trust and shown to the world that despite their desire that we not exist, and I understand why that is, we are a legitimate business with a legitimate service, with millions of people around the world who are deeply interested in what we offer, because it gives them a connection to a community of people that is very hard to find elsewhere. And because we're really good at what we do, I think, we've got a platform that enables people to use it in a way that gives them a bit of control, allows them to manage their levels of discretion, and then find people who are really interesting.
It's interesting. So, is your motto still, what is it?
Life is short, have an affair.
Have an affair, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so, from personal experience, and Lacy can attest to this too, there is something hot about having sex with somebody that's married.
Yeah, there is.
Right?
Hence why we're in the lifestyle.
And we've all done it.
Yeah.
And I think we've all done it. Well, me and Lacy do it now openly and where everybody's knows. And what's the word you use for that?
Disclosed non-monogamous.
Yeah.
Right. So we're disclosed now.
Yeah.
But we've done the undisclosed thing.
We have. Yeah.
And there is something hot about that.
Not with each other, but we have
right
in previous relationships.
Right.
Yeah.
And listen, that's part and parcel.
If you had to say why is
it's the taboo of it. It's the more we're told not to do something. Think about it from this perspective. In the 10 Commandments, adultery is the only sin mentioned twice. It is so taboo in our society, our culture, our religion, our governments, our families all tell us not to do it. Yet monogamy is actually not a common occurrence in the natural world. There are very, very few animals, and ultimately we're just a slightly evolved animal, I think, who follow monogamous practices. I think penguins are maybe one of the 2 or 3 animals that actually truly do it. And so the idea that you're going to mate with somebody in let's say your early mid-20s, and the fact that we're living well into our 70s, 80s, if not 90s, and that person is going to be your be-all and end-all for the next 70 years, that's crazy to me, right? Like that's a hard burden for one person to take on, the idea I'm going to be your best friend, your lover, your co-parent, your financial partner, your social partner, all those things on one person's shoulders. And so this idea of stepping out of your marriage can be really fascinating, particularly, again, think about it from the Hollywood perspective. Some of our favorite movies and storylines and TV shows all center around on infidelity. So, I know we get the criticism because we're out front, we're out there, life is short, have an affair. But at the same time, everybody's watching it. Everybody's reading about it. I mean, people love the idea of sex and taboo sex. And there's a reason 50 Shades of Grey was so popular. And trust me, it wasn't because it was well written. So this business is serving a need because society desires it. And it's interesting. One of the things that I love about my job is we get to do research with academics around the world because they want to study the nature of cheating, the nature of infidelity and monogamy. And it's very hard to do that from a general population standpoint because people lie. People lie to themselves. But if you've already signed up to Ashley Madison, you've kind of already indicated who you likely are. And one of my favorite studies was from a professor, Dr. Alicia Walker from the University of Missouri. She wanted to know why women cheat versus why men cheat. And so she came to us and asked permission to do research with our membership. And we're like, okay, yeah, this sounds great. And so this was on her own accord. We didn't pay for this. And her research, which is widely available in books that she's written now, is fascinating to me because it completely flips the script. 80% of the women in this study were, obviously on Ashley Madison, were in sexless or orgasmless marriages. And
80%.
80%. And they would tell you that they love their spouse, they love their family. They weren't looking to blow it all up, but nor were they willing to compromise and live an unfulfilled sex life. And so they outsourced their intimate needs to Ashley Madison, which allowed them to, go back to be, and I've heard these words almost to a T, be a better mother, lover, and wife because of their affair. And, that really flips people's brains when they hear these words. Like, what woman could possibly do that? And then, Tara, you're probably going, yeah, I know a lot of women who've said exactly that. Before they've opened up or before they've, taken sort of the leap to a different space. But was far more fascinating and where I get a lot more pushback is on why men cheat. And the majority of men in this research were seeking emotional validation, which is really interesting because, if you were to ask 1,000 American men, why do men cheat? Why do women cheat? They would always say that, women are emotional and men, they're just horny when they get laid. Mm-hmm. It's not the truth. And it's funny. I'm a little bit older than you folks. So, there used to be this old trope around that sex workers would say, men sometimes hire me just to talk. And everybody like, what? That's a bunch of bullshit. That doesn't make any sense. But,
yeah.
Guess what? It's absolutely true. Because we live in a world where, aesthetic compliments towards a woman are expected and normal. Terry, your hair looks great. Oh, that sweater looks nice on you, so on and so forth. But rarely does that dynamic exist on the other side. Like you don't necessarily, the house, I'm not criticizing you, but using you as an example, you don't go, hey, Dan, that plaid, really brings out the brown in your eyes.
Yeah.
You look hot with your hat backwards. These type of aesthetic compliments are not given to men because we're supposed to be stoic. We're supposed to suppress our emotions. And so men often end up in what is a cold relationship and they feel unwanted, undesired. And suddenly they're 40 years old, 2 kids, they're stressed out at work, and they're not getting that emotional connection that is important to them, whether they recognize it or not. And they end up on Ashley Madison seeking that very sort of dynamic. Now, it will manifest itself often enough through a physical interaction, but they need that emotional connection in order to go through with that, which again, I think most people would be very, very surprised to find out.
Yeah.
No, but
you're basically saying the opposite.
Sense.
You're saying the women need the physical.
But it makes sense to me.
Orgasms and the men need that emotional.
Well, and 2 things. One, I saw that when I just played with Ashley Madison, got online and was looking at profiles. I saw quite a few women. I said that in the first half that just said that exactly what he said. I've got a great life, a great husband. I just need to have sex with someone, I need to get off. But, we to kind of piggyback what you just said, and we've talked about this, and it's something that on this podcast, we don't really talk about as much. We talk about if you want to be in the lifestyle, you go to your partner, you talk to them about your wants and needs, and you explore this together. But unfortunately, a lot of people find the lifestyle because one of the partners cheated. And then through communication and through talking things out, they kind of turn to the lifestyle to kind of fit some of these needs. And I think it works sometimes. Yeah. I think sometimes it can blow up if you're not, if you've not communicated and really worked through the...
It's not the way we would advise you to do it.
No, but it happens. We know we have friends that are now successful in the lifestyle and are living a great marriage it started through a divorce.
Mm-hmm. No, I think you're right. I think, at some point, if you're in a long-term relationship and you hit this where somebody cheats, you basically have a few options there, right? You can either fix it, to get divorced and separate, or you can fix it. And sometimes that fixing it means I have needs, desires, fantasies, and wants that aren't being fulfilled in this relationship. what's a way that we can fulfill those together? And then sometimes that is, non-monogamy.
Yeah, it's interesting. We work with a marriage therapist named Dr. Tammy Nelson, and she's actually coined those type of affairs as can opener affairs, because sometimes an individual will intentionally get caught for the purposes of forcing that hard conversation, because they might have told their spouse, listen, I'm interested in this, I want to explore this, or I'm unsatisfied. And the partner is either not listening, unwilling, unable, whatever the reason is, nothing changes. And so the individual who is seeking change goes out and has an affair with the intent of getting caught to say, no, look, I'm really serious. If you don't do what I need, I will get it elsewhere, but I want you involved. And I think, to your point there, that often can lead to, well, maybe then we should look at an open relationship. And what does that look like? And there was actually a great memoir written last year called Open. And the writer was, she was in her mid-40s. She was seeking something different in her life. And she wanted to explore open relationship with her. So she sat and chatted with them. And, it was interesting. Ashley Madison was part of the beginning of their journey simply because of the discretion that we offer, because they didn't want the rest of the world to know about. They were parents, they were established in their careers, those type of things. And so the reasons how people get into the lifestyle are, just as varied as to why people cheat. But it's not surprising to me that there's probably a significant portion of people who ended up in an open type relationship because one partner had an affair and forced, what is a difficult conversation. And I agree with you, Daniel. That's not the best way to go about it. But unfortunately, it does happen quite a bit.
It does, yeah. And those conversations are hard. Dan and I met as swingers, so we never really had to have those conversations. But I can think back to previous relationships that I was in. I can't imagine having to say those words out loud. I want to sleep with someone else. I want to try this. That seems very scary and very hard. And almost getting caught in something seems like an easier way out.
No, 100%. Especially, we live in the South, which, is a pretty conservative Christian area. So you just don't go to your spouse and say those kind of things, or even somebody you were dating or something like that.
It's more socially acceptable to have an affair than it is to be a swinger, to be honest with you, which is crazy, but it's just true.
Well, for the men, at least, in American society, let's be honest. Of course,
yes.
To this day, women are punished far more for having an affair than men do. It's not as bad as it used to be. We're not literally in the scarlet letter any longer, but we're not that far off from it, quite frankly.
I have a question for you. How much do you guys see people that are seeking same-sex exploration? So people that are essentially wanting to explore their sexuality. Because I know in our space, especially here recently, we've seen a lot more men open up about being bisexual and want to explore that within this community. So I would imagine if you're married and you're a man or maybe even a woman and thinking about same-sex interactions, and maybe you're not comfortable talking to your partner, that maybe you turn to something like Ashley Madison to try to seek that out. I know it's very popular on the internet for guys to, get on Craigslist and Grindr and things like that to try to find same.
Well, the reality is we've had same sex as male seeking male or female seeking female as an option for your profile. As long as I've been with the company, I'm fairly sure it probably was part of the founding principles in part because, we're from Canada. I think we're the third country in the world to legalize same-sex marriages. So we're a little bit more progressive comparatively. So it's part of the business, has been for as long as I can remember. It's not a huge function, but we've always offered it. And prior to, at least I remember the U.S. legalizing gay marriage, we did very much market towards men who either were, in closeted relationships or, not out yet, to use our service for that very reason. So it's part and parcel of what Ashley Madison offers. And it's part of the business, I think, that has lots of room to grow. For just as you said, Daniel, there are people who are exploring whether it's bisexuality or just same-sex relationships, regardless of how they describe it, but they don't necessarily know how far they want to go, nor do they want the rest of the world to see them. And I think it's a space where Ashley Madison really does have some good offerings for them.
Yeah, that's interesting. And it's definitely an area we've seen within the swinger community that seems like people are starting to be more comfortable being more open about their sexuality. It used to be much
more discreet. I think there's always been a lot of especially bi males in the lifestyle, but I feel like in the last few years, have become a little bit more accepting to where they can openly share that instead of having to wait and talk about it behind a closed door once you've already agreed to meet for something else.
Yeah. And I know, back in the day, you go on Craigslist, those were definitely sections that were very, very busy on those types of sites. Yeah. So I can imagine it spills over to you.
Well, that's dangerous too. Like meeting someone like on Craigslist, or I know there's like, and even in our town, there's like local places where like gay men will go in, if you go there, like that can be dangerous. So I feel like something like Ashley Madison or any other website that is secure is going to offer a little bit more
I guess
safety.
That's a good question though. So as far as Ashley Madison goes, do you guys try to implement safety? How do you?
Yeah, absolutely. It's core to the whole business. Trust and safety. We have a whole team dedicated to, in trying to limit, block, and eradicate, false profiles, people who are on the platform for the wrong reasons, and whether that's you're selling your OnlyFans account or something even more nefarious. Like, we have a team dedicated to ensuring that. We have a whole FAQ section to give our members guidance in terms of how to handle requests. So if for sake of argument, you come on our platform and someone says, "Oh, you need to get the Ashley Madison verified badge," that doesn't exist. You don't go off our site to get some sort of third party service to verify you. You can verify your profile with us with a government ID if you want, and that's another part of it. So if you go on and see someone with a blue check mark on their profile, that means they have identified themselves through a service we offer using government ID, which gives you a higher level of confidence that individual is exactly who they say they are. And so, we spend a lot of time and resources ensuring that the people you're meeting with or connecting with on our platform are authentic and there for the right reasons, because that's critical to the success of our business and to the trust of our membership.
Yeah.
That's good to know.
No, because it's scary to meet people online and then meet them in real person. That's just a scary experience to go through. One Lacy's pretty familiar with and probably has done more than.
Well, that's what I tell the story. When I first started in lifestyle and go and meet, even before the lifestyle, I was pretty active on dating sites and swinger. I would go and meet people at hotel rooms and their houses and stuff. And I tell Dan all the time, I'm like, I'm so lucky I didn't get bonked over the head or something. That's pretty risky for a female to just walk into someone's hotel room. But I got lucky. Nobody killed me, thank God.
It's literally how we met. She walked into my hotel room.
I did.
That was our first date.
Did you know she was walking into your hotel room?
I did, yeah.
Okay, good.
We'd been talking online, yeah.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, but I could have not been me.
Mm-hmm.
I think I'm a person who's I'm no longer married, so I've been dating for a while now, and I find it fascinating the conversations I have with some of the women in terms of the faux pas of dating and the lack of authenticity in certain individuals is both bewildering to me. If you don't have hair, don't put pictures of yourself with hair up, and if you're not 6 foot, don't say 6 foot. They seem like really easy things, but people do really weird and odd things all the time as it relates to dating. And I'm sure you could tell far better stories than I could.
So this is kind of off topic, but just out of curiosity, do you get pushback because you work for Ashley Madison? When you meet people, they assume that you're this dirty dog who cheats on everybody? I mean, I don't know your history or anything, but just I probably would judge you, even though I shouldn't, because we get judged too. So I know how that feels, but I'm curious if you've experienced some of that.
Yeah, I know it's a great question. I actually, I try to get it out in the conversations very early on so that there is an issue. I'm not going to waste anybody else's time. For the most part, there's been a few that have, declined to continue chatting once I disclose that. And, I get it. Not only do I work for the company, I'm also out there publicly talking about it. So you've got to weigh that in there. But others find it fascinating. And I think that's the bigger aspect of our society, that people want to know more about the space. They want to know more, not just anything to do with non-monogamy, because it seems so counterintuitive to so many people, whether it's lifestyle, open relationships, swinging, pick your topic. People are fascinated. And it's not necessarily because they're interested for their own individual pursuits. but they just want to know what they don't know. And they want to know, is what I've heard true versus, what I've seen on TV. And, like most things, there's a bit of truth in a lot of that stuff, but there's a lot more that isn't out there. So let's get into that.
Yeah. No, it's true.
We can relate to that.
Yeah. Okay. In the last 5 minutes here, let's talk a little bit about the future. You said you're foreseeing Ashley Madison, what you referred to as 3.0.
Yeah.
What does that look like? You guys are obviously the premier company if you are married and you're looking to have a discreet affair, or maybe even if you're in an open relationship and looking to connect with other married people to explore your fantasies and things like that. But what does Ashley Madison 3.0 look like?
I think, it's going to be an expansion towards a lot more of the disclosed non-monogamous community. In that, it's a huge range between polyamory, the lifestyle, swingers, open relationship, however you define it. There's such a huge portion of that. And unlike some of the other brands that are, more in that space now, we're still going to be predicated on discretion because we're going to be the brand that is, there for people who are not comfortable having their face as part of the profile, don't want the whole world to know about this. And they're not ashamed of what they're doing. They're not, afraid of it, but nor do they need the whole world to know about it. And so that discretion that we offer, we think is very enticing. And the fact that we have about 20% of our membership already there, we're not marketing to them. We're not building products specific to them yet. We are now. And I think that's going to be where our future lies, in discreet dating for people who don't want the rest of the world to know their business. I think the internet for the past 20 plus years has been very much predicated on the idea of a very public persona. This is me, this is who I am, and we're loud and proud, and we talk and chat, and we argue and debate. But there's a segment of society that is fatigued from that and wants a little discretion, wants a little privacy. And I think that space is where we're going to thrive, because it's what's been underlining our business success for the past 20 plus years. And so if we continue down that road, but offer that to more audiences who seek it for different reasons, I think that's going to frame Ashley Madison 3.0 in a very different light.
Yeah, it's funny when you guys reached out to us, we're partnered with a lot of non-monogamous dating sites and swinger websites and stuff like that. And I had never thought of Ashley Madison as a non-monogamous dating site.
We honestly had a conversation like, does this fit like our podcast and what our viewers will want to hear about? But truthfully, we sat down with you and started talking, and it was a very interesting conversation. Like we left the conversation like thinking and like just, I don't know, it made us think about things a little bit differently.
Right. Well, I mean, the truth is, if you ask me personally, if I think you should disclose or not disclose if you're non-monogamous to your partner, I think you should disclose.
Yes. At
the same time, I've not disclosed to my own partners, or engaged with people that aren't disclosing to their partners. So I'm very much a who are we to judge, right? That's it's really up to you as an individual. You know your situation. I mean, we know people that were, their partners are sick or, are going through some kind of medical thing, or there's a million reasons why you might seek out non-monogamy. And it's too hard to blanket and say, that's right or that's wrong. I think it's really up to the individuals to decide whether it's right or wrong for them. And because ultimately they're going to be the ones that suffer the consequences if there's some kind of fallout from that. But looking at Ashley Madison with 90 million users.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
It's probably the biggest non-monogamy dating site that there is.
Yeah.
And we get hundreds of thousands of new members every month. And I don't see that, slowing down anytime soon. And, all I say to people is use it in the way it's intended, be as forthright as you are comfortable and honest in your communications, which I know sounds, again, ironic given the nature of the platform, but you will find that there are people very much like you looking for what you're looking for. And it's an amazing, like some of the member stories I've heard of theirs are always fascinating. I just love the way people use the platform and the outcomes they've had, because it's so rewarding to hear quote unquote success stories, as it were.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So if people are interested in Ashley Madison and they want to learn more, what should they do, Paul?
Well, the easiest thing is you sign up. It's free to sign up, men and women, and then you can build out your profile, take a look around, and then men, if you see profiles that interest you, you can buy $9.99 can get you a 50 credit packages to start, and you can explore all the features we have and see who's out there for you. And like I said, life is short, have an affair. So there's a lot of opportunities. It can be a lot of fun for you. Bring your partner along too.
Ashley, there you go. Bring your partner along.
Yeah.
And it's ashleymadison.com, right?
You got it, sir.
Okay. So if you're interested, go check out Ashley Madison, and another way to connect with non-monogamous people.
Yep.
Well, we appreciate you coming on, Paul, answering all the hard questions. Mm-hmm. When Paul reached out to us, I said, okay, Paul, is there stuff we can't talk about? And he's like, you can literally ask me anything, which I was, to be completely honest, I was pretty impressed with that. So we appreciate you coming on. We appreciate you kind of going through some of the nitty gritty stuff that's happened with Ashley Madison. And I think it's going to be interesting to our listeners. And I would assume some of our listeners might scroll on over to Ashley Madison and see who's on that website.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. This was a great conversation, guys.
Yeah, I agree.
All right. And I think with that, in a world full of apples,
be the pineapple.
Be the pineapple, guys.
Bye.
Bye. If you've enjoyed our podcast and want to support us, leave a 5-star review wherever you're listening. If you want to see more of our content, you can find links to Snapchat, Twitter, Instagram, OnlyFans, and more in the show notes. Come join the conversation with us and other swinger content creators on our Swinger Society Discord server. If you have questions or feedback, email them to us at TheSwingNation@gmail.com. Make sure you head on over to TheSwingNation.net and keep up to date on all things Swing Nation. We thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you next time. Goodbye.